Hey guys, I'm back for another video, and today I'm going to be talking about Bedwars again. So, I've been getting a lot of questions, especially on my live streams, as to a tutorial on how to play Bedwars. For those of you that don't know, about a year ago I did upload a sort of tutorial, but it was very poorly organized because I recorded it live while getting targeted by like 5 teams. So today, I'm going to go over my toolbox, my bag of tricks that I have to win Bedwars games. So it's not really a tutorial, but it's a collection of cool things that you could do to better your chances of winning. So let's go. Starting off, this is a strategy that I invented in my head, but you know, there's probably some other people that also came up with it around the same time, but I think it could be said that I'm the one that popularized it, and that is the water bucket TNT defense strategy. So the way it works is you have a bucket, preferably already in the chest, but if you don't have it already in the chest, then you buy it as you're getting rushed by somebody with TNT, and then once they place TNT down on top of your bed, or they drop it down on top of your bed, you quickly place the water on top of the TNT, making it so that it doesn't break any blocks, and it catches them off guard. This strategy works because instead of putting the water first and them having to get rid of it, they think it's safe to drop the TNT, and generally people only have one, so they drop it, you negate the explosion, then you kill them and they're confused, and there's nothing they can do about it because that was their only way of breaking your bed defense. So that's my first trick. Very effective. I would say it defends at least 80% of the time. The big problem is when they drop with the TNT to fight you, which is kind of rare. It only really happens if they know you're going to use the strat, but it's not very common for people to know this strategy. So the second thing in my bag of tricks is my bed defense. So I know there's a lot of people that suggest different types of bed defense, but mine is very simple. I am generally a tool rusher. I don't use TNT that much. In my opinion, in the current Bedwars meta, TNT is kind of a crutch used by people that can't really break a bed with tools. So what I would recommend is on your first rush, you spend your first 4 gold and 16 iron on wood and wool. And then you put down the wood such that it is in the configuration you can see on screen, and then you put wool around the sides so that you have at least 2 blocks between the outside of the bed defense and the bed. And this is great because it requires 2 different tools. It would cost enemies 30 iron just to be able to break your bed defense fast instead of just punching it. And when paired with the mining fatigue trap, it's pretty annoying to get rid of this bed defense without tools or TNT. And as I said earlier, using the bucket strat negates TNT if you're at the base. So it's a great way to defend your bed without actively being there. It's just a good thing to have. Moving on, it is called the Wombo Combo. That's the name I've given it. So the way this works is that you get an invis potion and a knockback stick. And this is only for desperate situations, and there's a lot of problems with it. So the first problem is the person you're fighting, they better have good ping, so like they would be, you know, good connection, not lagging. And if they are lagging, you're going to need to get at least 4 or 5 hits on them for them to actually fall in the void. So the way the strategy works is generally if your bed's destroyed, if their bed's destroyed, or if they have more stuff than you, maybe they're bullying you with a bow. Obviously you can't approach somebody with arrows in you while you have invis. You can't have anything in your hand while you're invis, but all those things taken into account, if you sneak up on somebody with invis and you have a knockback stick in your hotbar slot next to your open hand, then you will be able to wait until they, of course, stand near a ledge, and then you just knock them off while they don't know you're there. It's pretty effective, and I only really use it when somebody has like 2 more levels of prot than I have, and they just don't die, or if they're really heavily defending a position you need to get. But yeah, it's a kind of situational thing, but it is very effective when you use it in the right way. Here's another obvious one. It's speed bridging. So a lot of people have different opinions on what kind of speed bridging is the best. In my opinion, it is ninja bridging. Breezily, I think, is more of a party trick than something you can effectively do consistently. It's just too risky. So what I would recommend is ninja bridging, whether it be straight or diagonal. And when you need to get elevation on a player, you jitter bridge, which is basically just clicking as fast as you can while walking backwards and jumping. And if you're good enough, you don't have to stop walking backwards. You can literally just continuously be walking backwards and jumping, and you can make a bridge. And it's extremely quick, and it's effective at getting the high ground on people. It generally scares them off if they're trying to rush your base. If you can jitter bridge way higher than them, they will probably retreat. And if they don't retreat, then you have the chance to jump down and, attack them and have the high ground advantage. Anyway, it's a great way to get the advantage. And again, with Breezily, it turns out a good ninja bridge is actually just as fast as a Breezily, and it's way more consistent. You're not going to fall in the void as often. Once you get good enough at it, you pretty much won't fall in the void unless you're rusty. So I would highly recommend getting good at ninja and not even bothering at Breezily. It's just a party trick. And also, ninja bridging while staring every 4 blocks or so is pretty difficult to do, but if you can do it, you could save another second or two, especially on maps like Rooftop. But it is difficult to jump, shift. I do the speed bridge pattern and jump in the middle of it. It is very disorienting. But if you can do it, it's a nice way to save a couple seconds. Anyway, so another trick is placing blocks in the middle of PvP to route players around, to gain an advantage in that sort of way. So that, for example, right, if you're running up to somebody and you place a block on the ground, they're gonna hit it, and they'll be like, well, then they won't be able to run at you as quickly. And generally, if you do it correctly, you place the block down, they get blocked by it, and then you keep running forward, you will get the first hit in the fight. That's the point of doing that. If you've ever seen any high players do that, that's why. It's to get the first hit. And if you back off enough, you can do it again, and you can just get free hits on people, and it's nice to do. And if somebody isn't as experienced at the game, or if you're really trying to get some objective, for example, a bed, you can place a line of blocks to route people so they'd have to walk around the blocks to get to you. This only works generally if they're dumb or if they're fresh off spawn and they don't have any blocks in their inventory, because otherwise they'll just place blocks and jump over the bridge. But it is good, especially off a fresh spawn. If you're trying to get a bed and you just place a bunch of blocks in a line, for example, block them in their defense or block them in their generator, it's good. Oh, and there's also a couple other things. W tapping gives you free hits, but it's much harder to do. Block hitting makes it so you take less damage, but I would only advise doing it in close spaces, like when you're in a generator or you're back against a wall. If you're in a 2-block high space, you can spam jump to get more crits. And if you're trading hits with somebody and you know you're going to lose the fight, or if you just want to not lose as much health and you're just constantly trading hits, try to go for jump shots so you get the crit to do a little bit more damage to them each time. So those are some general fighting tips, I guess, that work in other game modes as well. The next thing is using the mining fatigue trap above all when you have a bed defense, especially when you have obsidian. So not only does it slow them down, but it also lets you know that somebody's there. But yeah, the mining fatigue trap is by far the most bang for your buck, spending your 1 diamond on a trap, because the alarm trap is only really useful if somebody invis rushes you, but the mining fatigue trap will still activate on an invis person. It just won't reveal them, but if your trap goes off, you still know someone's there, and you can swing your sword around frantically trying to find them. It's still better, because then they won't be able to just get your bed in a second. The speed trap doesn't really do much for you. It gives you a little bit of a speed boost, but when you're trying to defend your bed, you don't really need speed. You need to slow down the enemy. So that's why I would say mining fatigue is by far the best trap. And if you don't have a bed and you're defending at your own base, you should get the it's a trap, because what that does is it gives the enemy blindness, and it makes it so they can't run and they can't do crits. So it gives you a huge advantage in PvP, and if you're constantly getting rushed by somebody and you have a diamond and you really need to win a fight, then you can get the it's a trap, and it will make them much more, it'll nerf them quite a bit in the fight. Okay, so now for hotkeys. Preferably you should be able to hotkey everything, but I know that it's difficult to form those connections in your brain. So if you can only really manage 1 or 2 hotkeys, I would suggest using mouse buttons. A lot of gaming mice have side buttons, So what I do is I use the left side button on my mouse as a hotkey to 1, and that pulls out my sword, which makes sense. So that would be the one I would suggest most of all. And if you can't hotkey more than just that, I mean, it's a prerequisite. You basically need to hotkey at least one thing to go to slot 1. That's what I would suggest. Also, you should map your run button to R instead of double tap W. Some people use control, which I guess is fine, but for me, it's easier to press R. It doesn't really get in the way in the inventory. I've noticed that once you get used to it, it's probably the best place for the hotkey to be completely honest. I think run as R is just an awesome hotkey that you should get used to. Even if you use control, I would suggest switching to R because it makes it so you're not going to accidentally trigger running while you're speed bridging or something stupid. But anyway, yeah. But yeah, if you can't hotkey any more than run for R, which you should have no excuse, you should do that. And having, for example, a mouse button mapping to 1, if you can't do more than that, I would suggest putting your blocks next to your sword, because when you're fighting against like a ledge and somebody knocks you off, you do have the chance to clutch block. And if you have the blocks, you know, in the slot just to the right of the sword, then you might be able to use the mouse wheel to snap over by like 1 and then clutch. Okay, now for my favorite trick, the fireball jump. It's a quick way to get around or past enemies. It's an easy escape from bad situations where, say, you're surrounded or you're cornered. You can use them in place of bridging in a lot of situations, and you can use them to break bed defenses from above or from, you know, anywhere to check if a team has obby, or if it's a 1-layer defense like wool or wood, or even a 2-layer defense, you can use a fireball to break through it instead of TNT. It's much faster, takes people by surprise, and it's really good. You can also use fireballs to escape a combo. Sometimes if you're just getting absolutely wrecked in PvP, you can chuck a fireball and it will knock them back and it'll reset the combo so that you have the chance to either get a comeback combo or run away. And obviously these are all beyond just the general use for fireballs that noobs use, which is just sniping people from across the map, which, you know, if you can predict where people are going, then it's still a viable thing to do, but it's obvious. But anyway, yeah, so fireball jumping and using it to hit people and take advantage of that knockback is really helpful. Also, TNT jumping is a thing. It's a little bit more difficult than a fireball jump because basically all you have to do with a fireball jump is you run, you look down, jump, and then a millisecond later you place the fireball basically at the same time. But I would say if one button had to be pressed first, it would be the jump button just to get a little bit more height. But you could just point at the floor and fireball yourself up. It just doesn't go as high. But anyway, but yeah, TNT jump is a bit more difficult because they have to basically time it. So, that being said, back to the wombo combo with the invis potion. There is such a thing that I've invented called the budget wombo combo. So if you can't get emeralds or an invis potion, then you can fireball jump into the air, pull out the knockback stick, and then hit someone in the void, because a fireball jump generally takes people by surprise or they don't see it coming. So yeah, it's a good way to just knock people in the void that are more powerful than you. One thing I also like to do with fireball jumping is what I call the break and escape. So what I would do is run up to somebody with, say, a 2-layer thick defense that's not end stone, and I have a fireball in my hand and they're running at me really fast from inside the generator. I stand on top of their defense and then I fireball jump. And what that does is not only did I just escape the attacker, but I also broke their bed defense. So if I still have enough health left and they're like knocked back enough, I'll just, instead of trying to escape, I'll just fall back down to where I jumped from and break the bed right then and there. It's a really quick way to take out a bed, and if you're lucky, the fireball knockback could even knock them in the void, and you'll get a hilarious moment where you just go from a team having a full bed defense and full health to just being dead and out of the game in 2 seconds. It's hilarious. But yeah, it's a really good strat. So, double and triple TNT jumps. These are expensive and they require a lot of skill, and no one basically does it. But hey, if you're at the end of a Bed Wars game and you want to take someone by surprise, maybe they have a bow, maybe they won't let you cross a bridge because they're building constantly, or maybe they just keep getting the high ground on you, then this could be a viable strategy. And when combined with a water bucket, you can also MLG to negate fall damage. And it's a good way to get past people, but it takes a lot of practice. So I would suggest if you're going to do a double or a triple, do a double, because triple takes even more practice and it's even more expensive. I've effectively used double TNT jumps many times. I would say at least 15 times in the brief 2 weeks that I've been doing it. It's pretty great. So I would suggest trying to learn it. It's a fun strat. So as I said earlier, MLG/clutching with water buckets is a good way to negate fall damage, especially with the triple TNT jump and you're like 50 blocks in the air. You don't want to die. This is pretty rarely used because the water doesn't... you can't reuse a bucket. You can only use it once and it costs the same as a TNT, so not a lot of people will use it. But hey, if you are going to do a really, really far jump, it might be a viable strat to have a bucket on you for negating the fall damage. You just got to place it really well timed. There's no real way to teach this stuff. You just kind of have to have the reflexes to click a millisecond before you're gonna land on the ground underneath you. And this basically makes TNT jumping even possible to begin with on a map like Playground. Like, just imagine triple TNT jumping from mid to an island. Like, that's gonna deal a ton of fall damage if you make it to the island. So you basically need a bucket at that point. Okay, so the next thing is TNT surfing. So sometimes players will place TNT, whether because they are low on health, or maybe they want to break a bridge or deter you, or they're trying to break a bed defense. If you want, you could stand on their TNT purposefully and surf it. So TNT doesn't actually do that much damage. It just kind of propels you. So if you want to take advantage of it, you can surf the TNT as if it was a TNT jump. And I've used this multiple times. For example, when somebody's trying to break a bridge, I would stop, stand on the TNT, and then let it explode, and then I would get launched in the direction I want to go. So, like, for example, towards their base. And they basically just gave me a way to take out their bed really quickly. So it's a nice thing to do. It helps you out. It's kind of rare, though, because it depends on what someone else does first. But hey, when the opportunity presents itself, why not just explode and go flying? When you see somebody else trying a TNT jump, if you desperately don't want them to make the jump, just jump right on top of them and just hit them before the TNT explodes so they don't get launched in the direction they want to go. I've done that plenty of times because I've fought some pretty sweaty players in this game, and they were trying to do a jump, and you can bow them as well. Bowing them right before the TNT goes off is a great way to mess them up and screw up their strategy. So, for the next strategy, this is most useful when you don't have a bed, or if you're trying to take out a bed, mostly if you're trying to take out a bed. What you generally do is you grab an ender pearl and you lure somebody away from their base. So like you get on their bridge, you look all threatening, and then you try to run away because you're, quote, scared. And then they'll chase you, they'll try to fight you, and then you approach them as if you're going to fight them, but then you walk right past them and pearl straight to their bed. And even if they void, you probably can get the bed before they respawn. So that's a fun little way to get an easy bed break, is to convince them that you're not on your way to their base. And now for the final strategy. I personally hate this one because it's killed me like a million times, and because of it, I think the punch bow should be nerfed. But hey, if you want to abuse it while it's still OP, here's what you do. Oh, why am I saying this in the video? But at the end of a game, if you have 6 emeralds, and you desperately need to take out somebody and they just won't die, then what you can do is get a punch bow, and then while they're in their bed defense, you chuck a bunch of silverfish down to distract them, and then you just bow them down repeatedly while in their base, and there's nothing they can do if your aim is good. They'll just keep getting knocked back into the generator, and it's a really scummy way to get a kill because there's nothing they can do to stop you. And I personally don't think this should be possible in Bed Wars, but hey, it's a thing that's happening, so who am I to say that it shouldn't be a thing? In this video, at least, I don't like it at all. Well, anyways, that is it. So that is my Bed Wars toolbox. Those are the things that I do while playing the game that I would say give me an edge when I'm fighting people. And a lot of them are really useful. Some are kind of rare, but I would say out of this whole list, I'd probably do everything in about 10 games, except for that last one. I generally never use punch bows, but every 10 games I would use at least all of these strats at least once. So it is really useful. It will help you out, and it could bring you wins. Well, anyway, leave a like down below if you enjoyed this video. It was a long one. Hopefully it makes your Bed Wars game just a little bit better, and if you have any more suggestions for other things people can do with Bed Wars games, leave them in the comments down below. Well, anyway, that is it. So, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys later.